through De Gea, and Mason Mount strikes for Chelsea.
Jim Fraser from Chelsea and Adi Boothroyd from England team. So England under 21. So let's get started, gents. Welcome and thank you very much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate you joining us for tonight's discussion, which will be done by 7:40. 8:10, because there's an important game tonight, Jim, that I think you'll want to see for sure. And I expect most of the people on this will want to go and watch as well. Should be an exciting game.
Yeah, important game, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start talking then about Mason himself.
Yeah, obviously, a fantastic person first and foremost. Comes from a fantastic family, and obviously a very, very talented footballer as well. And we think it's all about everything. It can't just be about the football guy for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think
terrific character.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that sometimes we don't talk about, isn't it? Is the character of players. We want them to have great ability and a great mind for football, but we also, to have the ability mentally as well is a real skill.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that before. Just an incredible guy from a fantastic family, but his love and passion for football is just unbelievable. We talk about fun and enjoyment at the early ages. From a coaching perspective. He just loves and enjoys football. The work he's done through lockdown, for example. He's helped our under 8, under 9, under 10 players doing Zoom sessions with skills and technique. He just can't do enough. He's just such a great lad, as Adi says as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to start off with that. I think the love of football for young footballers. So let's look through the route to the final that Chelsea have taken. Not choosing an easy route, Jim.
No, it's been really tough. Obviously starting with Forest, you're always happy to get a third round home tie. Hoping that the young lads are going to get an opportunity. And there's a number of young lads that played in that game as well. And we're really pleased to come through that game. 2-0. On to Hull, that was also tough as well, Guy. We were 1-0 up and seemingly cruising, and we're thinking that we'll get through this easy. And the last 15 minutes when they came back, it was a really tough game.
Yeah, I think that obviously from then on you're playing three of the top 5, and obviously the Liverpool being the champions is a way to go. If you're going to get to the final, you got to beat these teams sometimes along the line. So talk us through the one where I think you said that Mason wasn't going to play.
Yeah, ultimately the Liverpool game was obviously a really, really tough game. Drawing them at home and the form there, and we play them tonight. It's another obviously really tough game, but we did well there, and then that sets us up to play Leicester. Obviously, then in lockdown, and we didn't play well at Leicester. Mason wasn't due to start. But Frank went with him. Unfortunately, came off at half time with a couple of the other young players, and everyone goes to, it's the young lads, easy. But Frank made obviously a good call because we went on to win the game with the changes. But Mason's played so much football this year. It wasn't that it didn't play well, but it didn't work for him that day. But then you see he comes back for the semi-final, and the whole team were fantastic at the weekend, and Mason was a big part of that. Obviously, getting the second goal there.
Yeah, do you think the influx of young players at Chelsea this season has been great to see, and real just reward for you guys and the hard work you do, and I obviously see that firsthand. And it's the staff along with Frank certainly help that, don't they?
Yeah, it's certainly no one person is responsible. It's a collective, and that goes from the original scout, Rob Windsor, who first spotted Mason back in Havant playing for Boar Hunt, and then all the coaches that have helped develop Mason through all the years. Everyone's played their part, from the scouts to then in being recruited, and then obviously the coaching and development, obviously for ourselves at Chelsea, and then the work that goes on with Adi and all the guys from sort of under 16 when Mason started playing with England. All of that process leading to him now being a first team player with Frank Lampard, and obviously in the senior sort of squad, and has made 6 appearances for the national team with Gareth Southgate. So everyone's been involved in his journey. and it's a great credit to everyone who's played their part for sure.
Yeah, so let's have a look at the quick video then of the highlights from this FA Cup. That wasn't my choice of music, by the way, just so you know.
Maybe 80s, yeah.
Yeah, definitely mine.
So here's a look at that's just obviously this season. There's 49 appearances altogether, Jim, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah, 50 tonight obviously is, it's an incredible achievement. And, over the past sort of 15, 16 years, the experiences that we've gained is we don't ever get too excited as staff. We're almost like, if you've played maybe 100 games for the first team in the Premier League, then we could start, being a little bit confident that they're doing quite well. And, Mason's certainly on the way to doing that. He's nearly at 100 appearances in total, obviously with his loan moves as well to Vitesse and Derby. So he's going in the right direction, and to have experience now at Premier League, Champions League, obviously FA Cup, etc., is just phenomenal for Mason.
And you said earlier he's a good kid, and he's got his head firmly on his shoulders, so he won't be getting excited by all these appearances, will he? I'm sure there'll be yourselves, as you know him so well, that will. Well, does he need checking and challenging every now and again? I'm sure the way you've described in AD, we've seen plenty of those players before, haven't we? That make half a dozen appearances and think they've made it and want a new contract. But he's different.
Definitely. Well, I think he just thinks about the next thing. I think one of the big things that I've seen develop is a relationship that Mason's got with Frank. I know we're going to come and talk about the loans, but the fact that he trusts him at this level, at this intensity, so young. There's a really good bond there, and I think in terms of bringing players off and putting players on, I was lucky enough to see a lot of Mason last year at Derby, and he never brought him off. Frank, he just wanted him on the pitch, because he even for somebody so young, normally conventional wisdom would be, give him a breather some of the time, but last year he played him in everything, which for us I thought it's really refreshing, because if the player can handle it and he wants more of it, and he's not getting himself injured, then I thought it was really wise working with him the way that he's been dealt with from that aspect the last couple of years.
Yeah. He's obviously gotten hardened to the professional game. It's not easy. Everyone talks about that transition. Going from youth to senior, it is very difficult. It's so demanding. But he's shown that he's gone out to Holland. Didn't work out straight away in the early part of the season, but again, the mental strength and the desire of Mason comes through, because he goes from 14 games where he doesn't get picked and doesn't play to suddenly becoming the player of the season there at Vitesse. That takes some doing.
I definitely does in a foreign country with a different style of football, to be able to just particularly as Lewis Baker the year before was the big star there. There was big shoes to step into, but not only has he stepped into him, he's took him to another level. So scoring goals, making assists, and getting them appearances. Like as you say, we're at 97 now appearances in senior football, which is an incredible amount, and he's with his England career as well.
Yeah, and obviously, all the boys, when we're coaching the young players at schoolboy levels, there's players that are doing well and they're getting pushed up, etc. But those who are able to sort of cancel out all the noise that goes around them, we talk about surrounding yourself with good people. And Mason his family, as I talked about at the start, and Mason himself, they are like such good people, and they're open and honest, and they're transparent, and you can have honest conversations. You know, at under 14, we talked about it. You know, he's been with us from 6 years of age, but at under 14, you know, we know his dad was questioning, is it the place to be? I'm not sure you're going to get opportunities. But Mason's desire was to play for Chelsea's first team. That's all he wanted to do, and he believed he could do it, and he was prepared to sacrifice everything to do that. So by being at Vitesse and not playing for 14 games wasn't the end of the world. Wanted to stay on track, stay focused, talk to the people around him who kept him on the straight and narrow, and he's obviously gone on. From there, he had the chance to go to a couple of clubs the following season, but when Frank met him to go to Derby, there was obviously only one chance because it was a hero of his growing up, you know.
And obviously Jody was with him.
Yeah, and obviously Jody had worked so closely with him as a youth team player. You know, they won a number of trophies and tournaments as a youth team player. It's not all about just the winning, but those experiences that they shared. You know, the trust that Mason had in him, that Jody had in Mason, was obviously a big factor there as well. You know.
Let's just go back to his early days, Jim, if we can. And you said about his love of the game. And you also mentioned his mum and dad. His dad I knew from an early age, and I knew Mason when he was 4 and 5. Obviously, being a Pompey fan, his dad was the manager of my non-league team I played for back in the day. So he's, you know, I know the type of dad, so it doesn't surprise me. And we talked earlier about getting good people around them as young players.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, and that's why I say all of the coaches play a part in that journey as well, because you know we've got to be prepared that they join an age group and they get moved on, and we've all played our part. But you know, coming into the academy as he did as an under 7 at 6 years of age, making a sort of an hour and a half round trip for him to get to training wasn't easy. So the dedication from an early age was clear. And the way he conducted himself, that the love and passion for the game. He would train with us on a Saturday morning, and he would go back to watch Pompey in the afternoon. And you know, it wasn't like I play for Chelsea now, I can't go and watch the team that I love. You know, he watched and supported Pompey, but he trained and wanted to be a Chelsea player, and that was fantastic. So signing him as an under 9, because we had competition from Portsmouth, Southampton, and obviously we wanted him ourselves. It wasn't an easy thing. So to get him to sign at that age, because of the distance he had to travel, you know, was a big thing for us. And you know, that was the start of his incredible journey so far.
What would you say? We've got a question that's come in. What would you say Mason's qualities were at that young age, between 6 and 12, on that journey?
We talked about the person and the mentality and the passion, for sure. You know, technically he stood out. We talk a lot about performance versus potential. He wasn't ever the big physical strong player who just barged past everyone else. He was always the bright thinking, finding space, technically so good with both feet, wanted to work and develop his game. And you saw from some of those clips there, he's taking the ball on his left foot, he's crossing with his left foot, which is supposedly his weaker foot. You know, so he wanted to learn and develop. You know, he wanted to be tested and challenged in every session, and that was obviously refreshing for the coaches, and obviously, you know, for myself and Neil. You know, watching our players develop. You know, you're seeing everything there with his attitude, his mentality. All of that was always there in every session, and then the fact of his qualities he's got as a footballer. Of course, you're then almost talking about having the whole package.
Did you find that rubbed off on other young players at the same time?
Yeah, very, very infectious. I mean, his age group was a very talented age group, you know, under 8. And people talk about, you know, making decisions too early, and why do we sign players at such young ages? You know, the work that goes on, you know, from a local scouting and recruitment scenario, it is so important to us as a club. And, you know, we've always put a lot of emphasis on that. If you don't bring in the best talents at that age, it's very difficult for you to go and buy them potentially from a club later down the line. So the work that goes on there is crucial. And we certainly feel that Mason, you know, has developed throughout the programme, for sure.
So when did you get the first look? When did Chelsea first see Mason Mount as what was he then, 6, 7-year-old?
Yeah, he came in with his team, Boar Hunt. the manager Kevin Hill, they brought him in on a Friday night, and we had a game against our Cobham Development Centre, and he had a bit of long hair, so he stands out immediately, and then he just sort of bounced and glided across the pitch. Lovely technique. And what was really interesting, you talk about his dad, and you play for him at Newport Isle of Wight. His dad used to take him in the dressing room when he was 4 and 5, and sit on the bench. So he experienced what that type of football was like, and he likes to put his foot in, Mason. People think he's the small, not so physical player, but he always wanted to work hard, track back. And if you look at him now, the way he presses and gets around the pitch is incredible. But those sort of qualities stood out from an early age, for sure.
Jim, I know you do some great work in those early ages. How important do you think it is for clubs to do that at that, the pre-academy age? Because there are some great statistics out there about having players at your club very early have got more chance of making it to your first team.
Yes, it's a really interesting in debate, Guy. We spoke about it obviously when you do come in, and we've always felt that if you have the right development centre program set up, and then you're able to recruit the best talent at under 9, we think that's really, really important for our club. Some other clubs might think differently. I certainly hear differences of opinion there, but it would be very difficult if Mason signed for Southampton or Portsmouth, for example, for us to try and get him, or it becomes very expensive if you want to sign a player from another club at, say, under 14 or under 16. So there's a business element to that as well. But we think that if you can recruit players at under 9 and develop them in your program and work them through into our full-time school at under 15 and then become scholars and young professionals, the next step into senior football, is it a loan or is it straight into the first team? We think that program is fantastic. But if you don't get the best raw talents and best players at those ages, we think you're always playing catch up. That's our opinion, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think good academies are judged on good recruitment, good coaching philosophies, and good work with the coaches, and then a manager at the top or a head coach that believes in what's going on at the club and wants to play them. And it's obvious to see what a massive impact Frank going in there as a head coach, back with Jody, knows the club, knows the people, understands the work that goes into it, Jim, because not a lot of first team coaches, they just set on looking after their first team. Whereas the importance of those players coming through and the quality of those players, the real skill, I guess, is getting them into the team and keeping them in the team. That's got to be the key thing.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate that Joe Edwards obviously is someone who's been a player with us from 8 through to 16, then becomes a coach, has gone from under 8 all the way through to work alongside Frank. So you've got Joe, who's been an ex-Chelsea graduate, and then he's developed as a coach from 8s all the way to the first team. And obviously Jody is an ex-player and coming in to work at under 16s and through to 18s as well, and with Frank. So those 3 guys have just been fantastic for us as an academy and all the young players in their development. And without them, who knows what would have happened. But I definitely know with Mason's mum and dad and his granddad, for example, massive supporters of Mason all the way through. And Mason himself, we know that he would have found a way through, for sure. But definitely with Frank as our manager and Joe and Jody as assistants, that's of course been a big factor. But Mason's earned it, and say all the coaches that have worked, with Mason developing, that there's so many coaches who would have added to his game, and he would have taken so much from them. And of course, being in the program from as young as 6 years of age, he's had so many of those experiences. And like we said, Adi, then joining yourself with the England groups from 16 through to the senior team, so many people have played a part in his journey. And Mason's taking responsibility and ownership of it as well. That's also really important.
Yeah, I think the work that gets done when the players come to us, I think first and foremost, if we haven't got that relationship with the club, with the individuals in it, like we do, obviously with Jim and Neil and all the guys there at Chelsea, if you haven't got that right, then you're going to have problems later on down the line. We see the work that we do as being the icing on the cake, if you like. The majority of the work gets done by Chelsea and the other clubs. we put our little bit on the top of it. We expose them to African teams, to South American teams, to playing in altitude, to playing in heat. Because on top of that, when you throw the tournaments in there, I mean, Jim, you mentioned it earlier about getting used to winning those tournaments and the confidence it can breed with the younger players.
Yeah, we're ashamed to talk about it, Adi. A winning mentality. We have a winning mentality from under 9. It's not win at all costs. Coaches don't throw our philosophy that we work on and develop consistently out the window to win a tournament. We play the same style and philosophy that we always have, but there's a clear winning mentality in everything we do. And when Mason won his first tournament in Venlo, as an under 12, that was a big step for him. Then he's gone through winning the Night Cup. Those coaches who can remember us, the Night Cup was a big thing in our country. That put him through to the World Finals. Those experiences, then obviously going to win Montague with England. That was a massive experience for him. His 99-year group winning that tournament, and then that carried on winning youth cups, being the captain of a youth cup team. Winning the UEFA Youth League. We talked about it earlier, winning the 19s Euros. All those experiences have played a massive part in his development journey. And listen, there's sometimes when we haven't won tournaments and we've not done so well. That's part of his learning as well. But definitely
absolutely.
Winning is really, really important. He doesn't go into the first team and want to lose. He wants to win every game. He doesn't play for England and not want to win and score goals. Everything is about reaching that top level. And that's, you see where he's going now on his journey. It's just been, so proud to watch and develop.
Well, I think looking at the under 21s, our role is very similar to you. It's to win games and produce players, but not necessarily always in that order. Probably produce players and win games. And I can remember a few years ago there was a little bit of frustration that players you thought maybe should have been in the first team. We all thought, not just you. But I think now it's so refreshing to see so many young players. Reece James, Tammy stepping up, Fick, all those guys, Mason, that have done so well in tournaments, both winning and the under 21s last year. He got moved up 2 years to come and play with the 21s because I'll look at each player and think, right, what's his current form? What's he been like in the past? And thirdly, most importantly, do we think they're going to play for an England senior team? And clearly with Mason, that we thought very early on, let's stress him that a little bit more. He's coped with that. He's coped with that level. He's then coped with the next level, and then we need to see whether he can handle it. And of course, he played 1.5 games for me, and he was gone. Gareth took him up with the seniors, where he's obviously deserves to be. Now, I think the question for Mason is sustaining that and playing next year another 50 games, getting more Champions League experience, because the more he does that, the more it helps us and helps Chelsea's academy and helps Chelsea.
Yeah, and he's still developing as well, Adi. Just continuing to learn and develop all the time, wants to be the best. Always asking Frank, what do I need to do more? How can I improve? How can I develop? It's just like, unbelievable qualities that he has himself and his family that have helped him develop as well. It's without everyone working together, he wouldn't have been so successful. He's got his own qualities, but he's made sure he's utilised all the people around him all the time. And, we hope he's just going to carry that on for sure.
Before we go on to his the England games, let's just come back to this slide about. We talked a little bit about Vitesse, where he didn't play the first few games, and then not few games, more than a few games, 14 games, wasn't it, Jim? Yeah. And then obviously, then the 29 appearances following, he gets the player of the season, takes all the accolades, and then on to Derby and the influence there. And was it purely because it was Frank, or would the club have looked to get him to back over here with a Championship team then?
No, there was a number of teams that showed interest. A couple of the higher Dutch teams, the likes of Ajax, I know were showing interest. A couple of German clubs, but he was given permission to speak to Frank and Jody, and obviously in that meeting things were put to him that he felt that was the next step for him. he felt that he wanted to come back and experience, playing back in England at senior level in the Championship.
It's interesting to hear that it's him that's thinking this and not his family or his agent.
But I definitely know that Tony would have been instrumental in terms of talking to him and asking him. But like I said, at 14, when he said I'm not sure, and Mason says no, I want to do that, Tony wouldn't have been making decisions for him. But I'm sure they would have had frank and honest discussions about what they think the best next step of his journey was, and that's what's crucial. It wasn't us as a club going, you have to go here or you can't go there. It was an open discussion. We talked about surround yourself with good people, so he would have had those chats, and Derby was obviously a fantastic move for him. And he obviously played a number of games there, scored goals, number of assists as well, gets to a playoff final. Unfortunately, they just missed out, but what a great experience it was for Mason at Derby,
I think that's really important as well, Jim, Guy, to go through that period where things don't go so well, you lose in a final at Wembley, to be able to bounce back from that when things don't go well on a loan. You go there thinking you're going to put young players to go, I'm going to play there every week. But then part of their development is actually being left out, being dropped. To see their reaction, is he going to be a sulker? Are we not going to hear from him again? Or is he going to roll his sleeves up, as obviously Mason has throughout his career, and gone, right, okay, that's fair enough. That's your opinion. I'm going to change it. And I think that is he's got many qualities, this kid, but I think that is his biggest quality for me.
What one story at Derby, I know that he got I think it was a hamstring injury. And usually, from a loan perspective, a player would come back to get their treatment with us. But Mason's made the decision that he wanted to stay there. He wanted to be in and around the squad. He wanted to travel with them, even though he was injured. Mason doesn't do things by half. He's so professional. The way he conducts himself is just incredible, and that's a big credit to him and his family and the way that he's been brought up, for sure. But just little things like that really are important in your development. If you just go, now I'll go back and I'll just get treatment at Chelsea, and you come back down the motorway 150 miles and you stay at home a little bit longer. He didn't want to do that. He embraced being at all those clubs. I noticed that the other day he's been buying season tickets for the Vitesse fans as a gesture for the support he got. This is a special person that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's as you said, that's something that a real quality for a person, let alone a player to have.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at some of Mason's highlights as an England player. Okay, some examples there of the caps that Mason's run that's won throughout his England pathway. Interesting to see the amount there and the goals. And Adi, you talked earlier how sometimes that can mirror club appearances at ages, and sometimes it's opposite.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in this case, he's like, you look at him and you look at his career so far, he's like the golden boy. It's brilliant. Everything's gone well for him. He's come up the ranks at Chelsea with England. He's slowly moved through there. But many times, and this goes back to dealing with adversity as a younger player, and the parents and the people surrounding him. If things don't go so well, and players on loans and they don't get the opportunities that they believe they should have, it is part of it that you go through that spell where things aren't going so well and you come out the other side. It's the key difference, I think, from that Mason shows to a lot of other younger players that maybe sulk and think about it's not fair. I should be playing. This kid just gets on with it, and the fact that he can play and pretty much get a cap at every age group. For still somebody so young, I think he's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, I mean, again, just linking in, Jim was saying the importance of tournaments, whether you're winning or losing them, but obviously winning them brings great experience itself. Again, he was part of that with England.
We've since we've been in the FA as a group, Gareth's talked about the England shirt being heavy for some players, and I presume that's the same with the big clubs. Yeah, but for England, wearing the shirt can be a burden for some players, and for some players who love the game, like Mason. You can see, in the last bit of footage there, he scores that goal and he's got his hand on his face. It's almost like, I can't believe this is happening to me, but just shows you with hard work, with talent, and with the right people around you and the right opportunity, because I think that's a key thing. A lot of head coaches these days maybe don't put their faith in young players, but I think we look at Chelsea as a great example of kept battering away, of pushing their players, and now they're finally getting the opportunity to show what they're all about. And we see that at a number of other clubs, by the way, big clubs, which I think is a great thing. It's almost like we've come full circle from the days where every player in a team was from a different country. Now we've got a situation where we've got homegrown players playing regularly, Champions League, Premier League, and that can only be good for English football generally, but more so for the England national team, because it means that more players come through.
Isn't it refreshing, AD? You've obviously been a manager yourself at the highest level, and it's all about 3 points, etc. So for someone like Frank and his second job to show so much faith and trust in the ability of young people, I think is testament to Frank and everyone at the club. But it's the boys who've got to do it. They've got opportunities. Mason won't ever think he's cracked it. That's what drives him on to want to be the best. To want to make sure he's always in those England teams, always in the first team. That won't ever stop.
Jim, this. Sorry to butt in. This. At Vitesse, he had that disappointment of not starting for whatever reason. Was there anything? And he handled that so well, as you said it. Was there anything on that journey up to then that helped him develop that sort of attitude, or do you think it's just an all-round thing, just having good people behind him and his journey through the age groups with you guys?
Yeah, again, I know that his dad was always, you can't just be a number 10 and be nice and fancy. You've got to do all parts of the job. I just think that the way he's grown up and developed as a person, it's everyone's sort of positivity around him. And listen, he's had dips as well. He's not always, just had it easy. He's not just cruised for all the ages, always playing up. He's not ever been the big, physical, strong, powerful player. He's been the clever, intelligent one, great game awareness, great speed of movement, character and desire like you wouldn't believe. There's so many skills and attributes that he has within his game, and he can play. He sees a pass, he can score goals, he can make assists, and he's getting better. That's the beauty of it. He's still only young. His potential is fantastic, and we just can't wait to see that keep going. But definitely his development program from 6 through to where he is now has put him in great stead for dealing with the cutting edge of football, playing at the top of the Champions League and in the Premier League week in, week out. That's not easy, and it's great to see so many young players across all the clubs who are now starting to play senior football. I think it's just incredible. It's everything we do in youth development is to hope that managers trust in all the work that we do. And the work that everyone does that must be on this webinar today is phenomenal. Youth development is such a tough job, because it's not ourselves that put the players in the first team. As much as we might think they're good enough to be in the first team, it's down to the coach, as Adi said earlier. But if you haven't got players who are good enough, ready to batter that door down, and the attitudes of Mason to have that will and desire to get there, that they won't. They've got to keep going all the time and believe they're good enough to play at that level.
So, Eddie and Jim, if I was to ask you some of the implications for coaches, along the way, some stuff we've got to think about to help produce these players, what would you say summarizes the most important ones?
It's a good question.
It's a huge question, mate. I don't think we've got a long enough webinar to finish that one. I mean, the first thing that jumps out for me, Guy, is character. Jim's told that great story of a young Mason Mount sat in the changing room behind the door while his dad's giving out information. You gotta love football. You got to absolutely love it and want to get as much information as you can. And then when things don't go so well for you, have that the resilience, that bounce back ability to just take it on the chin and move on. I mean, we haven't even got to technical and tactical and physical attributes. I mean, he's outstanding super strength, if you like, is his brain. This guy, he sees passes that other people don't see. He can get himself out of trouble, and he's got a goal in him. A lot of people were giving De Gea a lot of stick for the goal that Mason scored, but he's hit it so early that he's give the opportunity the goalkeeper to get his footwork wrong. But it's because he's got the audacity to shoot from that distance against one of the best goalkeepers in the world that he scores the goal. I think he's got that about him, that element of surprise.
I listened to his interview after the game, and he said at half time, Frank had said to him, he'd had a couple of chances in the first half where he looked to try and whip his shot, and Frank had just said, look, you need to get through the ball, get some shots off and really hit it. You see a lovely touch with his left foot, steps forward, and all right, didn't hit the cleanest, but the intention was to get his foot through the ball. And he says, if you don't shoot, you don't score. So, that was crucial. But many things for coaches. For me, you've got to let players express themselves. You want to, they've got to make mistakes and let them fail. Know when's the right time to challenge them and put up an age group. And obviously, you've got to be able to know how to deal with when they might have to come back.
How did that work for you, Jim, at Chelsea? How was that? Who were in the? I don't mean the persons, particularly, but how many would be in those conversations?
Yeah, ultimately the coaches would have those conversations, and then in my role as assistant to Neil, it would be me looking over, say, the younger ages. So I would have those chats with the coaches at the age group he's in and the age group above. And then as they go up the ages, then Neil would be more involved in those conversations. And it's just being open and honest and making sure it's the right time for not just Mason here, for any player. So we say technically, tactically, physically, mentally, can they handle going up? And if they don't really score highly in many of those boxes, what's the reason? Is it because they're just more powerful and stronger? There's got to be a reason why that they step up. But dealing with having to come back down is really difficult. So I think just the coaches and the way they talk to the players and the parents and explain their decisions, I think that's important.
Great stuff, guys. Look, I know. Time's moving on. We've got 5 minutes before the game finishes. So starts. It hasn't started yet. So I just want to really thank you two guys for coming on and sharing what's been an incredible journey for Mason. One last thing, really. Where do you think it's going to stop for him? Where do you think he can go?
Well, he's playing in the best league in the world on a regular basis. He's played for his country. I think every coach that works with him, and I didn't include Steve Holland in that as well, who's with us, that obviously used to work with Chelsea in the first team, and all the guys at Chelsea. He is one of these people that you think, touch wood, he can avoid injury. He could go on and become one of the best midfield players that we've ever had. So I know that's a big statement for such a young player, but he seems to have the temperament to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, no, agree. You know, he's obviously, you know, the competition will get harder. People will talk about the transfer situation that we had. You know, if you're playing at Chelsea, you've got to deal with players coming in at the highest level. We know that Mason mentally will be ready to deal with anything like that. And for me, the more he plays with even better players, he'll continue to develop and improve. And like he's done this year, he's played almost every game for us under Frank, and I just think he'll continue to want to be the best, and that means he'll end up being in the team because his attitude in training, you know, this is crucial for the guys as well. You know, every day in training, you know, his physical output's the best. You know, his mentality, his attitude, the way he conducts himself, everything about Mason is just fantastic. You know, I don't like to, you know, talk about players, you know, and put them up on pedestals or anything like that. But he has all the attributes and ability that can take him right to the top of the game. And you know, we're fortunate. The likes of Frank, his manager, who's been and was one of the best players that this country's ever produced. So I know that Mason will want to be at that level for sure.
Well, again, Adi and Jim, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your stories involving Mason. It's been a great evening. As I said, we were making sure we finished in time for a big game tonight. Just a reminder for everybody listening: the links for tomorrow night's, next week's, looking at Chelsea, looking at the games next week, and also review of that game, the FA Cup Final the following week. The links will be available for you to do so. So thanks all for joining me, and have a good evening.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Guy. Cheers.
Bye.